Welcome to Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery starring Jerry Springer, along with Gene Galvin and me. I'm Megan Hills. We're recorded live in front of a brilliant studio audience at the Folk School Coffee Parlor in Ludlow, Kentucky.
My daddy came home.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Jerry Springer.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. And those of you up in the balcony, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I know those tickets aren't as expensive.
They aren't.
But,
well, it's a good show.
The people come. Sure, sure. What are you doing, Gene? You're wearing a suit and a tie.
Yes, he is.
And
dress shoes,
what's the point?
gold cufflinks.
What's the
actually.
point? There's no cameras here.
Oh, he looks nice. What's wrong with it?
This is a podcast.
Thank
This
you,
is
Megan.
like
You're
radio.
welcome.
No one can see it.
See, that's the problem.
Look,
with
here's what first of all, I did send out a memo directing everybody in the crew and in the cast to come.
The crew is
dressed
4
differently.
people.
Okay,
the cast is 3.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a memo, I have to tell you.
I apologize.
I didn't either.
My business plan doesn't always work as I've laid. Hey, Megan, you're a human resources manager.
I am.
And I think you will agree with me that the way people dress, Jerry, when they come to work projects how they feel about the job they're doing.
100%.
And this audience, and look at how this audience is dressed. Look at Harold right here, one of our regulars wearing a
It's the same
a
jacket he wore
wonderful
last
sport
week.
coat.
Same sweater you wore last week.
It's the same.
I think
I think, you know what, I think Gene is
Somewhere-
correct. I
Thank
think it's
you.
nice to have a little bit of ceremony to
Yeah.
something, and just because you come dressed like a slob every week doesn't mean Gene should.
No. Well, you're dressed casually, but I'll tell you what, the clothes you're wearing, I bet you, cost more than my house cost me, to be
Very
honest. Even though you're casual.
Your
But I
suit,
think,
I'm looking at your suit, and
Right.
somewhere there's a Holiday Inn without a curtain.
well, look. I admit.
Come on now.
I admit. No, it's fair.
He doesn't have good taste.
My tailor is TJ Maxx.
Yeah.
But look, here's the deal. I think that we need to step up. I think every week we need to come in here dressed formally.
I agree.
And thank you. There are people shooting photos, and these photos will get posted on our website. And we'll let the audience. In fact, let's let the audience decide.
Yes.
How many people like the way this? Listen to that. Listen to that. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, and
Someone-
look how they're dressed.
Yeah, I know.
We got 12 lumberjacks
Actually,
back there.
I think Casey
hipster in
Campbell
here.
wore this same suit to his high school prom, if I'm not mistaken. But now I'll tell you what. Speaking of this, Jerry,
But
and
you put that on purposely.
yes, I did. I
What
consciously.
were you thinking?
I consciously dress for success. Thank you, Megan.
Yes, he
Thank
does.
you
Yes,
very
he
much.
does. He does.
Well, I do the same thing on my television show.
Hey, by the
And
way,
you can see how that works.
well, let me ask you something.
All the guests on
Look at
my
all that
show dress for
respectability.
success.
Yeah, I know they do. Hey, when you were an award-winning and Emmy-winning anchorman at the NBC affiliate in Cincinnati some years ago,
Yeah.
and you wore suits, by the way, every night, did you not? Paid for by the company. I bet you had like an allowance or something, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, but they sent us out to Pogues or Shillito's.
Is that true?
What it was.
The-
Yeah.
the local-
And we had it, yeah.
And
But
you bought-
they didn't trust us to pick our own suits out, so they sent a wardrobe
Is that
consultant.
true? Went with you.
That was smart.
Said, "No, put
Plus,
that
they
one
made
back."
me get
That
my
was-
hair cut, all
yeah.
kinds of things. 'Cause back then,
Yeah.
they were. But that was the news, and that were,
Yeah. Well,
where you
this
have
is-
to have authority. You have to lower your voice when you do an important story.
Is that true?
Is that why
Yeah.
you're so squeaky when we do this show?
December 7th, 1941.
No.
It makes me think.
That's the way it is. No one remembers Walter Cronkite anymore. Isn't that awful?
I mean, I know who he is. I was
Yeah, well,
alive
you're
for it.
75. That's why you're.
Hey, do you remember back when, and I recall this as a Cincinnatian and a political supporter of yours back then, but you were mayor of Cincinnati, and I remember when you were mayor, there was a time when you had to be the ceremonial starter of a half marathon, as I recall.
Oh,
and didn't
yeah.
you show up dressed kind of like I am with a coat and tie and dress shoes and the whole deal?
Well,
Tell what happened then, because it's...
It didn't end well.
all right, yeah, we'd like to hear this.
No, I was the mayor at the time, and we were on a Saturday morning. They were going to have Cincinnati's first, this was 1978, first mini heart marathon. And it was, to raise money for the Heart Association. But it was a mini marathon, so it was only going to be 9.5 miles.
Wow.
And,
That's a
we'd
lot of
run
miles.
along the river.
A lot of miles.
And my job was to give the opening, speech as the mayor, wish everyone luck, and then shoot the gun to start the race. Well, a lesson, if you're taking notes here at home, boys and girls, is when you're starting 3,000 people doing anything, don't be standing in front of them.
Yeah.
Because honestly, they all, you had 3,000 people ready to run, standing right there in Fountain Square, and I'm standing in front of them giving this ridiculous talk. I'm dressed in a suit. I'm the mayor. And I finally said, okay, give on your mark, get set. I hold up the gun and I shoot the gun. All of a sudden, 3,000 people start coming right towards me. Well, I did what anyone would do. You don't want to get trampled, so you kind of start jogging along. But I'm holding the gun.
And in a suit.
And I'm in a suit with tie shoes,
like
with
wingtips
shoelaces.
or something. Yeah.
With my wingtips, and they look very good. Anyway, I've never run. I ran for office, but I never ran a block in my life. And now I'm running because I don't want to get trampled. And there's, police along the way, and I kind of handed the gun off to one of them, and I figured, and then what am I, 32, 33 years old? So the kind of macho takes over, and you start to feel, well, all right, this is okay. I can do this. So I start jogging along with them. But the 9.5 miles was 4.25 miles one way and 4.25 miles back. So the longer you stay with it, you then have to come back. Because otherwise I'm out in one neighborhood, I don't know what. And now, after a while, my feet start hurting.
I bet.
And everything's starting to ache. But you're the mayor. You can't cry.
But did you cry?
Well, I knew I wasn't doing well because on the way back, the cops along the way kept asking, is there anybody else? So
Is that it? Are we done here?
Yeah. So I know it. But then you realize all the cameras, all the TV stations are there with the cameras at the finish line. And now word has gotten out that the mayor's running. So now you got to finish. What kind of a story was that? And I really was in pain. I mean, it hurt. My feet were bleeding. I was limping for several weeks afterwards. But I crossed the finish line. A guy named Bill Rogers, who was an Olympic runner, he won. And he did it at 46 minutes. I came in at 1 hour and 45 minutes. He beat me by an hour. An hour, I could have gone home taking a nap.
I can drive to Lexington.
He could have gone home taking a nap and come back and beaten me. But yeah, but I wore a suit for that. A lot of good it did me.
Yeah,
Well,
Is that why you
learn
won't
from
wear
that.
suits now? Is that why you have issues?
I said I'll never wear a suit again. Although I wear one on the TV show. I just don't wear a tie because that's extra. That
No, I've
costs more.
noticed that because I noticed. I know it even at my mom's funeral. And thank you for coming, but I said, got you out in the vestibule of the church. Jesus, couldn't you just show some respect for my mom and put a damn necktie on? I mean, come on. I'll go get one from the car. No,
cold.
It's
That
an
is so
LA
cold.
thing. No, I just don't know. No, you wore a
It's an
tie to
LA
that.
thing.
You did.
That is so cold.
Denise Compton.
Yeah. Oh my God.
freaking
that
out
poor
over this.
woman. You should be.
Well, first of all, let's explain this.
Yeah.
Let's explain who she is. Denise Compton is the head of an organization called Podcast Watch.
Yeah.
Podcast Watch is a right-wing organization. For all I know, it's only Denise Compton. I don't know. But I know she's with it. And she is on our butts.
Yes, she is.
She listens to our podcast regularly. She's incensed over the fact that it's very liberal. She claims that's a violation of something. She quotes stuff. She says she has friends in Congress who are conservatives, and she's taking this to Congress.
Yep.
And I am for
She's
changing the
nuts.
podcast and putting in maybe half of it conservative. And Jerry's like,
What?
you political coward. Like,
you-
where's the
you
Gene
are a
Galvin
coward.
Here's the
that I
thing.
used
It's
to
like,
know?
You left out what we did to this poor woman. She's been wandering around too. She's going to be angry.
Well, because you
Because of
fancy
Gene.
pants,
No.
what you did.
What? Well, I did it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
sent her to, so she called in one time, and Jerry thought it would be funny to say, oh, look, maybe it'll appease you if you could get some backstage passes to my TV show, bring a bunch of people, we'll put you up.
And she's a right-wing conservative. There's no way she wants to come and see my show.
But
No,
she
but she
did.
agreed.
But she
And
said
then
she loved
you
tickets. What's wrong
you
with her?
sent her to Chicago, Illinois, when for the last 6 years your show has been in Stamford, Connecticut, right?
I wanted her to get a sense of history.
Well, she got it.
Where the show had been.
But
You
that's-
were the one that have said go to Chicago.
No,
I would have said-
you
Let's not
said
play
it.
the blame
You
game
said
here.
it.
That's not even the worst part. Where else did you send her?
Well, then she calls back from Chicago
went to
on a cell
Chicago.
phone to talk to like a whole bunch of cab drivers. That show hasn't been here for years. So then we chilled her out by saying, look, we apologize. It was a mix-up. We were confused. Yeah, it is in Connecticut.
We lost
so
the last 6 years.
then we said, come to our podcast. Sit at the table with us. Get your own mic. Participate for a night. She agrees. And I noticed that night, Megan, you were sitting there. You didn't say a word. You looked like you're afraid of her. And you sent her to Asheville, North Carolina.
Yes, he did.
And we're in Ludlow,
He
Kentucky.
absolutely did.
You
We're
said
a half a
Asheville.
day's
You said-
drive
I would
from
never do
Asheville.
that. That is.
You
Do
did
we
it.
have the tape?
No, we have no tape. There's no tape. No,
Thank
this is
God
digital.
there's no tape.
This is digital.
Thanks. If there is a tape,
There are
burn
archives
it.
No, there's no
online,
tape.
guys. There are
So
archives
look,
online.
I'm just bringing this up
Yeah,
as
but
if
You
we
should-
ever
You're
hear
telling this
from
poor
her
woman who's
again.
traveling around the
and
country.
she might be listening to this. Denise, call us back and we'll work
Yeah, well,
this
we
out.
can work out where we really
we
are.
have senses of humor, and they sometimes get the best of us.
So
and-
here's the problem that I have, though. At the beginning of the show, how many times do we say we're in Ludlow, Kentucky on this show? Honestly.
a lot every time. Every
Yeah.
time.
A lot. Where does Gene work for crying
I
out
don't
loud? You
know.
can't get away from
I-
Ludlow on this
I
podcast.
don't know.
So
but
she's
it's a good
clearly
point,
not
Megan.
listening
it's a
that
good
well.
point, Megan. Hey, and by the way, we're going to hear in a minute from Walt Sample. And this is very cool, by the way. We're going to get to this in a little bit. But there's something that goes on at the Folk School Coffee Parlor, speaking of them, called the 52 Week Club. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. And Walt Sample is from that. We're going to hear a song or two from him and songs that he wrote as part of that. Before we do, Jerry, Donald Trump, depending on your point of view, might be the gift that just keeps on giving. But there have been a series of things that he has done that I know you've been stewing on. I bet you had at your Thanksgiving dinner, like a lot of people, a good conversation about Donald Trump. How could you not? Yeah. And tell us a little bit of your take on what he's becoming and whether it matters or not.
Yeah, we talked about, and there's some conservatives in my family, but we've called the police, so they'll be taken away. No, but we did have some
I feel you,
real
man. I feel
strong
ya.
discussions at the table.
Really?
It got ugly. We have agreed to try one more Thanksgiving.
Well, that's good. You try one more.
But,
Yeah.
it got rough. But anyway, the good news concerning Donald Trump, the good news is he will not be president. Okay, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. That's the good news. The bad news, and by the way, if I'm wrong, I was never here.
Yeah.
This was all Gene.
And
So
I
We
never
have no
had-
tape. It doesn't
and
matter.
I never
anyway.
had a podcast, and I'm upset that someone's trying to impersonate my voice.
Yeah, that's right.
The bad news, though, is, and on this I am serious, is the damage he is doing just by running and the stuff that he says. And that has real consequences. And what I mean by that is, I know Donald Trump. I worked for him when I was the host of the Miss Universe pageant, which he owns. 2008 in Vietnam, actually, is where it was. And he's been only nice to me. So this isn't a personal anger kind of thing. But his politics are poisonous. And the stuff he says is so un-American that you can't even have the slogan, "Let's make America great again," because everything he's saying is the most un-American thing you could possibly say. And he's always been nice to me, but I think that's because I'm not Mexican. It's because, I'm not Muslim, and I'm not, at least recently, haven't been a woman. And although if I was a woman, he would cherish me. And now what he is saying about the refugees, it's dishonest. He's lying. I mean, that's the only nice way you can say it. It is a purposeful lie. He says things such as, oh my God, Obama wants to bring over 250,000 Syrian refugees. Okay, that is an absolute lie. The only thing the president said is what we should make welcome 10,000 Syrian refugees. And I say to the president, God bless you. Because if America isn't willing, as most of the other countries in the world are, being willing to take in refugees, then what does America stand for? What is that Statue of Liberty? Does Trump want to take down the Statue of Liberty? Give me you're tired, you're hungry, you're poor, whatever. I thought ISIS is our enemy. Well, if ISIS is our enemy, why wouldn't we want to protect, give comfort to the people that are running away from ISIS? Aren't these the good guys? Mm-hmm. And now he builds this fear. This is the problem with what he says. He gives all these wackos out there, or the few wackos we have out there, he gives them cover. Because now they can say stupid things and be racist and all that, and say, well, the presidential candidate says it, so it must be true. For a Syrian refugee, first of all, to get into America is a 2-year process. You have to go through the kind of background checks and the process that takes 2 years, that if you're just a student or just a tourist, you don't have to go through any check. You don't need a visa if you're a tourist. You know, and you can come from 38 countries, and you don't need a visa to get into America. And by the way, one of those countries is France, another country is Belgium. In fact, it's all the European countries. Well, didn't these guys that shot up the people in Paris, they were from these countries. They could have, let's say they were the ones you wanted to get. They weren't Syrian refugees. So you're not making America safer by saying we're going to stop the Syrian refugees from coming, because obviously ISIS is using other people, including people that, are here in the United States, American citizens. Some kid looking at a computer in his home. For 2 years, if you're a Syrian refugee, to get into this country, you have to go through, and I have here, I cut this out, the 20 steps. This is why it takes 2 years. For a Syrian refugee to come to America, you got to first register with the United Nations, and then you get interviewed by the United Nations. And then ultimately, if you pass that test, you're given refugee status. Then you're referred to resettlement in the United States. But you don't come to the United States. You still have 2 years where you have to be in a refugee camp. And by the way, purely coincidentally, I just remembered, back in 1979, I spent 2 nights at a refugee camp in Jordan. And it is a horrible place to have to be where these people are. Remember, these are people that are just running away because they love their children and they don't want them to die. They don't want to be killed. They don't want to have their heads chopped off. So they would do what every other person listening to this podcast would do. You would do anything you could to save your family. And they're looking for a place that they can have a life without fear. Okay, finally, they refer to resettlement in the United States, and then they have to go through more checks. Checks with Homeland Security, a check by the FBI, a check by the State Department. All of these interview processes that you have to go through. And then you get another background check, which is at a much higher level and much more sophisticated. You have to get fingerprint screening, where they run your fingerprints and your eye. They take the picture of your eye, your retina scan. Thank you. And they check that through all the data that these agencies have around the world. And it goes on and on and on. And finally, after 2 years, you make it in. Now, Trump said 250,000 refugees coming to America.
As if it's tomorrow.
Right. But first of all, the 250,000 are refugees from all over the world. 1,800 have come from Syria. Not 250,000, 1,800. This is where the lie comes in. If you're running for president, why don't you look this up? And the 1,800 had to go through the 2 years of the investigation. Now, since 9/11, 3, count them, 3 terrorists managed to come to America through that system. 3 since 9/11. They were caught, but they got in. 3. And we've built up this fear. Instead of saying, and one other thing that we've now done, by having this presidential candidate and all the other candidates joining in with him on the Republican side, or most of them, Cruz, even Bush said, let's only let the Christians in. Oh, that's American. And now Trump says, let's have a registry. He'd be okay. Would you have to register if you're a Muslim? Oh, that's great. My family remembers that, where if you were a Jew, you had to walk around with a star in Germany and Austria, a Jewish star on you, so they would know who you were and which shops you couldn't go to and who you couldn't do business with. I mean, why don't we, just as Americans, why doesn't the Republican Party stand up and say, we are an honorable political party. Mr. Trump, you are not welcome in this party with those views. Those are un-Americans. If you want to represent the Republican Party, you have to have American values. That is the most un-American thing you can think of. So I don't know why we're saying, oh, that Trump man, he tells it like it is. Really? Just because you tell it like it is, or what you think it is, that isn't a virtue in itself. You know, a lot of dictators tell it like it is. If what you're spreading is hate and venom, we are playing into ISIS's hand. They want a war of civilizations. They want Christianity against the Muslim world, against Islam. That's what they want. Because if they could get that, they can get recruits all over the world. 1 billion Muslims. Really? Are we now going to declare war against 1 billion Muslims? This is insane. This isn't just, well, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. For God's sakes, doesn't America mean anything to us? Trump has to be stopped. His words are poisonous. So obviously he's not going to be elected president. But what he's saying in the meantime is hateful, it's wrong, and he's got to stop.
All right.
Very well said, Jerry.
Unfortunately, Jerry, that's probably not the end of it, but let's talk about the 52 Week Club and do some music as well. We constantly talk about the Folk School Coffee Parlor. They're partners in this podcast. We love
It's
the
in
people
Ludlow,
there.
right?
It's in
Is
Ludlow,
that Kentucky?
Not in Asheville, North Carolina. And
It's right
if you're
down the road.
listening, Miss Compton, they just moved it here.
They
So
just
when
moved
we
it.
sent you there, it was in Asheville, but now it's in Ludlow, Kentucky. And so one of the things they do at this cool place, and the name of it says that it's a music-centered coffee shop. And I've said many times, I hang out here regularly. There's constantly music going on. So one of the cool things they do is the 52 Week Club, which is a gathering of regional songwriters from what I'll call the greater Cincinnati, northern Kentucky, eastern Indiana, because Cincinnati's kind of in this what's called the tri-state area. So these people gather here on Tuesday nights, and they write songs. Very cool the way they do it. They take a prompt. They draw, or somebody, I think, name is drawn of the group, and then they come up with a word, and we'll hear from a second from Walt Sample. It might be even a phrase or a sentence, but something that is a prompt. Then the following week, everybody comes back with a song written, driven by that prompt. It is a technique used in songwriting and other kinds of writing to just keep us writing. So you got to stay creative, and you got to kind of write on something that came out of nowhere. If you can do that, theory goes, then you can write based on your own internal inspirations. So that's the 52 Week Club. Walt Sample, our musical guest tonight, is a member of the 52 Week Club. And so we're not only happy to hear some of his music, but to hear kind of what that process produces. So first of all, let's hear it for Walt Sample. And Walt, we're going to ask you to do a song, and in the process, I'm going to take this stupid-ass tie off and dump this coat because I hate this.
Is it a clip-on?
And
or is that a real
I did
tie?
it just to try to kind of get a little more famous or impress people. It obviously didn't work.
Why is it so shiny?
It is awfully
It's been
Is that a
worn
real tie,
by
Gene?
4 generations. Hey, it's polyester.
Yeah.
And you notice
Let's hear it for
it's-
Polly.
Yeah.
It's a little
And
flammable.
notice it is kind of hip, narrow lapels.
Yeah.
Well, the reason is it's from the 1950s when the lapels were narrow.
It's really
Make that
vintage.
the 60s. Yeah. Anyway, Walt, what's the first song you're going to do for us?
I'm going to do a song called Inside Again.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm alone, there without a quiver. I wanna come like rain on a river. Take me back, let me back inside. Welcome me like a sunflower greets the sun. You're where I wanna be. One and one make one. Hold me tight, squeeze me tight again. Take me back, let me back inside. Hold me tight, squeeze me tight again. Inside again. Inside again. Inside again.
Well, Sample, you are, I understand, by trade, a farmer. Is that true?
I would say a part-time farmer. I mean, I own a farm in eastern Kentucky.
Is that a song that came from the 52 Week Club, by the way?
Yes, the prompt, what we do is we all write down an idea, throw it in a hat and pull one out. And the prompt for this one was like rain on a river. So what we usually do is on the way home, I'm thinking, okay, rain on a river, raindrops alone, but he's really came from the river, so I'm thinking the whole osmosis thing and all that. And then I just kind of came up with, I'm alone. I want to come back home like rain on a river, inside again, and it all just kind of came together.
The 52 Week Club, tell us a little about how that works for you and how, is that something you look forward to weekly?
Well, with me, I'm cursed with too many ideas to write about. So by having like rain on a river at the top of my page, I can focus on that and come up with something. Because without a topic to write to, I would give up too easy and say, oh, that's not a good topic, and move on to the next one and move on to the next one. I think this gives us a focus and an idea to write to.
You got one more song, and if you do, can you tell us what the prompt was for it? Is it another one from the 52 Week Club?
I could do one from that.
Is there one that mentions me?
No.
Sorry.
Well, I was going to do a song that I wrote. Does everybody remember the Chilean miners that were stuck?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Well, that story enthralled me, and I couldn't get away from the TV or the news about it. And this was when I first just started writing songs, and I wrote this song, and it's called The 34th Man.
Do it.
And it's easy to sing along on the verses. August 5th, 2010. A gold mine in Chile caved in. 33 men trapped a half mile down. We prayed they were safe and sound. Very little water and 2 days worth of food. They tried to stay in a positive mood. The devil came and saw them, but they chased him away. Then they got down on their knees to pray. Oh, 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 oh. 17 dark days in the golden tomb. They prayed they would soon be exhumed. Like a miracle, a small hole appeared. Like from above was the near. The 34th man was with them all the time, deep in the belly of the mine. Like Jonah, they would be expelled from their living hell. Oh, oh, they appeared. 33 smiles from ear to ear. The 34th man deep in the mine wasn't trapped there, could have left any time. Taught the men how to keep the faith, walk in the light and accept God's fate. Oh, oh.
That's Walt Sample from the 52 Week Club, but also, Walt, let's give a mention here to your music is Big Mule Music, and is there a website or can people
Yes,
access
it's
your stuff?
www.bigmulemusic.com.
Where did Big Mule come from?
With my farm in Eastern Kentucky, all my buddies ride horses in the Red River Gorge.
Ooh.
Nice.
So, you know, I rode a horse when I was a Boy Scout, so my one friend had a lot of horses. I said, I need a big animal, I'm a big man. So I ended up buying the biggest mule probably in the eastern United States. His name's Toby, and we would go on these rides through the gorge, and afterwards we have a campfire and play music.
How cool
and
is that?
everybody sees me and they say, well,
Yeah.
here comes Big Mule Music. Here
Yeah.
comes Big Mule Music, because I can go to a store 3 counties over and they'll go, you're the guy with that big mule, ain't you? So that just kind of came about, but
Yeah.
the website is just a collection of, I give all my songwriter friends a stall, and then I put all their music in Barnegie Hall, I call it.
Yeah.
And it's free to go to. I don't
That's
charge
so
my
cool.
friends, but just there's a couple hundred songs in
Yeah.
there. You just click on and listen to songwriters.
Nice.
Good for you.
Having fun.
For years, they've been calling me Big Jackass, but Big Mule.
Hey, Walt, do you know the song Irene Goodnight? Could you take us out on that? And Jerry Springer will join you on it, believe it or
Yes,
not.
I do. And understood Jerry liked it in the key of G.
Well, I guess so.
I guess he does.
Irene, good night. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams. Last Saturday night I got married.
You've been listening to Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery, recorded live at the Folk School Coffee Parlor in Ludlow, Kentucky. Thanks to Patrick Kennedy for writing our opening song, and to you for listening. Check out our website at jerryspringer.com.
Irene, good night. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams.
Jerry Springer.
Sometimes I live in the country, and sometimes I live in town. Sometimes I take a great notion to jump in the river and drown. Irene, good night. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams. You all come back now. You hear? Thank you.